everyone, today we're going to be doing some more cozy colouring techniques, so get your alcohol markers ready and let's dive in to lots of different really cool effects that you can create with your cozy colouring books. I have the 320 set of Ohuhu Honolulu markers, but it doesn't matter what markers you have, as long as they're alcohol markers, we should be absolutely good to go. These are really good markers because there's so many different tones. They've never run out on me, they've never gone dry on me, unlike Copic markers, which are ridiculously expensive, like unbelievably expensive, and I've had so many problems with them going dry, going mouldy, running out really quickly. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Ohuhu, but whatever alcohol markers you can get your hands on, go for it, because there are some really cheap and budget options. So let's go. I'm working in Loved, the colouring book by Creative Paula, and we are going to start off with the embroidery technique. So make sure that you've got a piece of card or something thick to put behind your illustration first of all, because alcohol markers will most certainly bleed through most papers on the planet. So we need to make sure our other pages are protected. So with the embroidery effect, we are going to try and make this illustration look like an embroidered patch, something that you would sew onto your clothes or you would embroider onto a piece of fabric. And it's quite easy. So first thing you need to do is get your colours sorted out. So decide what colour you want for everything and make sure you have a light, medium and dark version of that colour. So for example, for his hat, let's go for a purple hat. Why not? I'm going to go for V320, V270 and V250. So I've got my dark, medium and light shade. The first thing we're going to do is use our lightest shade to base the area. So just get your lightest shade and colour completely over the blank space. So once you've done that, get yourself a pencil and lightly draw some horizontal lines, about just under a centimetre probably. You don't have to be precious with it, just do it very lightly and draw some lines of roughly equal width. So I'm just going to go for about that. They don't have to be perfect widths. So I'm just going to zoom you in. So I'll start from the main line at the bottom of the hat first of all. Might need to just tilt this a little bit so we've got decent sort of wrist motion there. So we're going to flick up about halfway, maybe 3/4 of the way, but make sure that you're leaving some of that purple underneath showing. So we're just going to do little flicky lines like this, and again, you don't have to be too precious with it. Just make sure that you are leaving a bit of that light purple showing underneath, and that the lines that you are creating are not of the same length. So we want a bit of variation in the length. And then just going to fill that in a little bit more right down the bottom. Again, you can just extend the length of your lines if you want to in certain places. Make sure you've got a nice jagged sort of zigzaggy rough edge rather than a uniform length of all of the lines, and that you've still got obviously that piece of light purple showing underneath. Do the exact same thing from the bottom of the lines that you've drawn, and again, don't worry about going over the lines or anything like that. Embroidery is not a perfection type of craft. There's going to be stray threads, it's not going to be perfect, so you don't need to worry too much about it. So there's our little lines, just fill them in slightly, maybe extend a couple of them. And we just continue doing that with our medium shade, dragging up from the bottom of each line. Do a little bit of filling in here and there. It doesn't really matter too much about the filling in because we've got another shade to come in and do that with. But just make sure that your lines are about 1/2 to 3/4 filling that section that we've done with the pencil. And then the very last one. Okay, so that's your medium shade done. Now you're going to get your darker shade. For me, it is the V320. And we're going to do exactly the same thing again, but we're not going to go as high with our lines as we did with the medium one. So we just want to keep our lines fairly short and make sure that we can still see the medium lines underneath. Now, if you go over them, you know, in certain areas, it's not a big deal, but we just want to try and avoid doing that as much as possible and just keep these lines really short, about half the length of the previous lines, just so that you can still see those previous lines underneath. Maybe I should just keep going from this end, otherwise I'm going to get my strokes messed up. About halfway. So every time we add a colour from light to dark, we are getting shorter with our sticks or our lines. Let's just call them lines, Claire, because sticks sounds weird. And it is a really easy but really effective technique. And if you are one of my long-time viewers and you're not really interested in this kind of cozy colouring style, but you would like to try this in adult colouring books, you know, the really detailed ones, you can definitely do that. Just take the technique that I'm showing you today and apply it with pencil or however best you think you can do it. And you can just take the technique and make it your own, make it suitable for whatever media or book you are using. Right, so we have our 3 colours now down on the paper. You're going to need a white pen. You can use a white gel pen or an acrylic pen, as long as it's got a really fine tip or you're very steady with it, you should be okay. And this time, instead of going up and flicking up from the bottom, we're going to be flicking down from the top of the section. So where the darker colour ends, we're going to start flicking downwards. So we're going over that base colour that we put down originally. And again, we're going to make our lines jagged, not uniform, lots of different heights and variation. And the same here. So this is just going to look like, give that stitch effect. Again, make sure your lines aren't the same length. Sometimes you can get carried away with trying to make things look perfect and you don't even realise that you're doing it. And I think you need to sort of really concentrate on the fact that these need to be a little bit jagged and uneven. So you can just add some back in if you feel like you've not gone too far or you just want to extend some of them. Again, it's not a perfectionist thing. So we'll start from this one now and different lengths. Now we're going to get some kind of, you could use a fine liner, you could use a fine acrylic pen, a gel pen, anything that you've got that matches up to the darkest colour that we've used. So we want it ideally to be able to be seen over that darker colour. So an acrylic marker is a really good shout. I'm going to try it with, let's see, I have a dark purple fine liner here. Let's see how that works. Oh yeah, I can see that over there, so that's fine. As long as you can see the colour over top of your alcohol marker, your darkest colour, that's absolutely fine. As I say, acrylic markers are probably best for this because they cover, they don't, you know, allow you to see through. They completely cover, they're completely opaque. So what we're going to do is we're going to start again with the dragging upwards and go over where our darker lines are. So just like we did with the jelly roll, but the opposite way. We're going to add in some lines going up, and these don't need to be tight lines, you can just do them quite loose, quite, you know, keep a distance between them and then vary it up by making them a bit closer together in areas. Just play with it, it's all fun, it's all trial and error and fun and games. So I'm just going from the bottom of each section and I'm doing some lines. Different lengths, different sort of widths between them, doesn't really matter. And just varying. Everything should look really varied, really natural, as if it's been stitched by hand. Okay, the black fine liner or acrylic marker, whatever it is you're using, gel pen, whatever, we're going to make some little stray threads and stitches. So on the edges of your black border, we just want to do a few little stray stitches, as if it's, you know, started to come apart at the edges, and just do them wherever you want to do them. You can again vary the lengths of them, make them look a little bit bushy, you know, like it's a few threads in one area have come apart, and thicken some of them, make some of them, you know, not as thick, and just make your edge look quite fuzzy. Little loose threads. And you can do some of those on the inside of the shape as well. So you don't have to just keep it to the outside. You can go over some of your purple. And that will also help to deepen up the darkest colour by adding this little touch of black. So you're going to get nice contrast there, good pop of colour. Just try and make it look as rough and ready, but still as if there have been stitches made with purpose, you know. So there we go. You can just mess about with it all day, really, can't you? I think it doesn't matter how much, you know, that you put on there. It's all adding to the effect. As long as you don't go too, you know, go crazy and just end up covering it all in black, then you'll be absolutely fine. So there we go. We've got some nice little threads just coming out of the edges there. It all looks really cute and fuzzy, and obviously we're going to do some down here, but I'm just thinking about when I colour the face, I don't want to have anything smudging, so probably best to do this step once you've done all your marker colouring. But this is how it will, or similar to how it will look when you have a go. So I'm really excited for you to try it. I don't know who made this tutorial. I've seen it all over TikTok. I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen it all over the place. And I've just kind of had a go myself and seen if I can do it. And this is how it turns out. So once you have the whole page done, you will see how amazing it looks, and it really does come together and look like patchwork. So if you're not feeling the vibe at the moment, just wait for me to finish this one and you'll see how cool it looks. Okay, so it's almost finished. As you can see, I've put little black dotted lines over every line that we drew. So everywhere you've drawn a line to create a section, just make sure you do some black dotted lines across there, and that will help to separate the sections and give it even more of a stitched look. I've gone a bit crazy with the loose stitches. You might not want to do so many. You might want to do your white lines and your coloured lines a lot straighter than mine, a lot neater than mine. Obviously, if you do that, it looks like neater embroidery. If you do it like I've done it, it looks like fuzzy, probably you've had it for 10 years in the back of the wardrobe type of embroidery, but I quite like that. So I've also gone over the really thick black outlines with a thicker black marker, and I've just sort of, if you keep your hand kind of trembly and go over the black line, it will create much more of a fuzzy line rather than a perfect line that's the same thickness all the way around, and it just adds to the look of it. The last thing that I'm going to do is just get a grey, so I've got CG2, and we're just going to do a little bit of a shadow underneath. You don't have to do this, it's just something I like to do to give it a slight three-dimensional look. So you don't have to do anything fancy, just get your marker, and anywhere you think you might want to do a bit of shading, just do a bit. Like I said, nothing fancy. There you go. So that is the embroidery technique, or my style of doing the embroidery technique. Let's move on. So the next tutorial is easy peasy raindrops. I've seen these done so many different ways, and this is the easiest way I think for you to do it. All you need is your colourless blender and your white pen. So you get your colourless blender. There is no pigment, ink or dye in there whatsoever. It is just the alcohol solution. And once you have coloured your illustration, obviously I've just coloured this one really quickly to show you this demonstration. Once you finish, this is the last thing that you do on top, so you can't put any more layers over this. This should be your final thing. So you get your brush. I hope it doesn't have to be a brush, it can be a bullet. Just make a raindrop shape, a teardrop shape with your brush on top of your marker. So if you've got a brush, you can just simply hold it down like that. Make sure there's a bit of a point on it. You can just mess around with it just till you've got a bit of a raindrop shape. So once you've done that, that starts to push the alcohol ink through to the other side of the paper. So you can see it here, and then it starts to disappear from your page because you're pushing it through the paper onto the backing sheet. So once you've got your teardrop shape, you don't have to be too precious with it. Again, like I said, once you've got that shape, you want to concentrate on the fat bottom of the raindrop, not the tip of the raindrop. And I just want you to hold your pen at the bottom of that raindrop. And the longer that you hold the pen onto the ink that you've put down when you coloured it, the more transfer there's going to be through to the bleed sheet underneath. And that means that we end up with a paler area at the bottom of the teardrop. So the longer you leave it, the paler it will become. You just hold it on there, keep checking it. Maybe even move your bleed sheet a little bit so that you're not fighting with the bit of ink that you put through the other side. And then you should end up with something that looks a bit like this. Now I'm just going to make this teardrop a little bit bigger. And once you have this kind of effect on here, you'll notice that you have a rim around it that's darker red. It's where it started to push away the colour. So this will act as the shape for your teardrop, and all you have to do is put a little bit of a shine on there, and you will have what looks like a raindrop. Now let's do it on the blue, and we'll do a few of them so we can see the effect all together, because one doesn't really look very good, does it? So I'm just going to put a few raindrops on his hood. So again, I'm just using the shape of the brush, but if you don't have a brush, just make the shape with your bullet, something like that. And then hold the colourless blender to the fat bit of the teardrop at the bottom until you start to get something like that. So it's easier to show you on the blue. And once you have that kind of look, you again just add a little bit of shine with your white pen. And obviously if you do this quite a few times, it's going to become clear to the eye as soon as you see it what it is. Now if it was just that on its own and somebody looked at this page, they'd probably be trying to figure out what that is. But when you do a few of them, your brain just automatically realizes what's going on. So we'll just do a few more, just making that teardrop shape, and then holding the pen right at the bottom. This just gives it a little bit of a glassy look, I suppose, as if it is water that's sitting on the top of his coat. And again with the shine, it's super duper easy, and you can just keep going and going. So I'm just going to do a couple more teardrops on this brolly. This seems to be taking just a little bit longer to push that ink through, probably because of the strength of the colour, I'm not sure, but obviously it looks better on blue anyway, because when we think of water and raindrops we think of blue, don't we? So I've just held that down on there for a minute, and I'm going to do my shine like that, and I'm just going to cover that one again. Sometimes the red colours and the purple colours, they don't like to be covered with the white pen, so you might have to go over it a few times. I'm just doing another one, just holding it down to the bottom again, and once you have enough ink pushed through, you come in and do your shine. Now, it might be an idea for you to leave them to dry before you go in with your shine if you are struggling to get that white gel pen to sit properly and not fade. So that is the easy peasy raindrop. Let's just do one more on his coat just for fun. It's so quick and so easy. And especially on this blue coat, I think it's really effective. What do you guys think? Let me know. So let's move on to the next technique, which is bubbles. So you will need a couple of markers of pastel tones. I have got the G110, RV130, BG4 and V230, and you'll need your colourless blender. First thing I'm going to do is put a layer of that colourless blender down. So that's just going to really help wash out the colours that we put on top and blend them all, make them all look nice and blended together. Then you're going to get your colours, and it doesn't really matter where you put them. I'm just going to put them anywhere I like inside the bubble shape. Again, super easy. We're not doing anything difficult. Never do anything difficult on this channel. You'll probably be used to that by now. So there we go. So I'm putting in a little bit of colour here and there. I'm then going to go over the top with the colourless blender again, just to give it a bit more help. We then want to go over the circle with a white pen. So you can use your jelly roll or whatever fine tipped pen you've got. I'm just going to use a bit of a thicker one just for purposes of time. And we're going to go around the bubble. Now this will make even more sense when the rest of the page is coloured, because this will just look like a floating bubble amidst whatever background colour you've put on there. So I might have to do this in layers, because sometimes white pens do leave a bit of a shadow showing through on the first pass. As that's doing its drying, so we can go over it again, I'm going to get my jelly roll and start to do some thick, juicy highlights. So I'm going to bring this straight over the top here, and we're making like kind of like a C shape, but more like a crescent than a full C shape. And we're going to follow the edge of the bubble, and we're going to make that thicker. And just fill it in. Sometimes I need to wipe off the edge of my white pen because it seems to get clogged up. But as I said, you can do a couple of passes if your white pen just isn't showing very well. And do a few more thick highlights. I'm just going to do another one down here, little sausage shape. Maybe just do a little bit of a blob just there. I'm going to come back in and do a second pass. Let's get some more ink down in this pen. Do a second pass. Depending how opaque your white pen is that you're using, you might be able to do this in one go, but it is a really bold, thick line, to be fair. So it's going to take a bit of going over. But I think you get the gist. Obviously I'm being quick here for demonstration purposes, but you can mess about with it for as long as you like and make sure all of those black lines are completely eradicated. Just touching up this one here. There you go. Simple bubble effect. It is almost too simple, but believe me, once the rest of your page is coloured, it looks so cool. It looks really translucent and shiny, but just with those, you know, slight tinges of colour in there as well, that you've got that sort of iridescent look to it, a bit pearlescent as well. So like I said, you can just keep going over until you've got rid of that black line, and the whiter you can get it, the better the bubble looks, because it really does look like it's just floating on the page and it is nice and see-through. But yeah, so that is basically the bubble tutorial. I'm just trying to get it as as white as possible. But yes, it is a really fun and very quick and effective way of doing a bubble. So that is 3 tutorials I've shown you in this video. I showed you 3 in a previous video that I did. If you would like another 3 or more, do let me know and I can do some more of these colouring tutorial videos with the very easy, quick alcohol marker techniques. So yes, just let me know. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more to come. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon on Colour with Claire.